Palmer did not obey the Blood Ancestor command, and tragedy struck in the next second. Because Palmer caused the Blood Ancestor to lose the oxytolumen, the Blood Ancestor killed Marchand as a punishment. On the other side, Vasily and the others successfully escaped from the Blood Horde. Just as they were preparing to go home, unexpectedly, Gus chased after them. Both sides immediately raised their guns, and Gus urged them to fulfill their agreement and hand over the oxytolumen to the Blood Ancestor. Abraham stated that he would not surrender the book. Once the Blood Ancestor obtained it, they would surely destroy it. At that moment, Quinlan and Angel also arrived, making the situation even more unfavorable for the two. Abraham proposed a suggestion to use the oxytolumen to lure the Blood Ancestor. As long as they killed the Blood Ancestor, the book would be useless to them. After considering it, Quinlan agreed to his plan, recognizing the formidable power of the extermination squad and the effectiveness of their cooperation. Later, Abraham went to Quinlan's residence. He first began deciphering the contents of the book, but Quinlan felt it was a waste of time. The blood army that the Blood Ancestor were building would soon take shape. Abraham listened and silenced Quinlan. This battle was crucial for humanity's future, and they had to prepare for victory. Having lost Nora, F spends his days drinking at home. One day, when Justine came to deliver materials to F, she delivered some bad news. The mortality rate from the virus last week was 100%, but it had dropped to 70% this week. F didn't know what caused this change either. Justine valued Vasily's ability to exterminate pests and appointed him to lead the Navy SEALs. After discovering the Blood's nest, the group began their extermination plan. These SEALs are very well equipped. With heat sensors too, they could detect and kill Bloods hiding in the darkness immediately. The Navy SEALs continued to move deeper into the nest. Just as they arrived at a corridor, a group of ambushing Bloods suddenly rushed towards them. Under the captain's command, everyone opened fire. The clearing mission was completed, but they still couldn't find the Blood Ancestor whereabouts. At night, F returned to his former home and started drinking again. Suddenly, strange noises came from outside. F immediately went to the door to check, but a feeler jumped out. Then another one appeared at the door, and the two feelers surrounded F. Strangely, they didn't attack, but seemed to be waiting for something. At that moment, F sensed someone entering, and saw that it was Kelly. F immediately asked about Zach. Kelly said Zach hadn't been turned into a Blood and was living with her. Then Kelly began relaying the Blood Ancestor words.
We want the lumen.
Book? You kept Zach alive to trade him for a book?
You have a choice to make. The lumen. Or Zach.
Gus plunged the needle into a major artery and then dripped his own fresh blood into a basin. Soon, the basin was filled with blood. Afterwards, Gus carried the bowl to the living room, where a Blood was present. It turned out she was Gus's mother. Gus had killed many Bloods, even his own brother without hesitation, but he could never bring himself to harm his mother. When Blood saw the food, she extended her meat spike directly. Blood quickly drank up the blood and then looked at Gus again, but Gus was already too weak and unable to continue drawing blood. Seeing this, his mother angrily knocked the bowl away. Gus was devastated by this, promising his mother that he would avenge her by killing Blood Ancestor. On the other side, the primogenitors called for Quinlan and questioned him about the whereabouts of the oxytolumen. Quinlan listened with disdain and gave the Patriarchs another scolding. Later, Quinlan stated that the oxytolumen was indeed in his possession and he wouldn't hand it over. He planned to use the book to lure out the Blood Ancestor. When the Patriarchs learned that Abraham was deciphering the oxytolumen, they became furious and warned and threatened Quinlan. Quinlan replied, stating that they were only allies. After speaking, Quinlan left the place directly. At night, Vasily led the Navy SEAL team in continuing the extermination plan. Through a thermal reactor, Vasily discovered a large gathering of Bloods beneath their feet. The more there were, the higher the chance of the Blood Ancestor being present. Subsequently, the Navy SEAL team arrived at an underground tunnel. They quickly encountered two Bloods, which Vasily referred to as vampire sentinels. They aimed to kill them with a single strike, as otherwise they would alert nearby Bloods. After dealing with the sentinels, the team continued to advance inside. At that moment, the captain suddenly spotted a person, which made Vasily feel uneasy. He quickly brought up the playback and discovered that the person was Eichhorst. Vasily saw this and immediately gave the SEALs a capture mission, explaining that the man was one of Blood Ancestor's men. Upon hearing this, the Navy SEAL team immediately pursued and followed until they reached a church. Vasily was concerned that they might not be a match for Eichhorst, so he also drove to the scene. By this time, the soldiers had already entered the interior of the church. The captain signaled for them to split into 2 teams to search the church. Shortly after they separated, their night vision goggles began to malfunction frequently. The next second, a piercing sound erupted, causing the soldiers intense headaches. Meanwhile, Vasily saw the video feeds being interrupted one by one. He immediately contacted the captain and urged them to retreat quickly. Subsequently, Vasily grabbed his rifle from the trunk and rushed into the church. While the Navy SEAL team was retreating, a dark figure suddenly flashed by. As the captain went to investigate, screams were heard from behind. When the captain returned, he found that the team members had been torn in half. At that moment, Vasily arrived. The captain instructed Vasily to quickly rescue their team members while he prepared to confront the monster with the thermal sensor. As he fired at the position of the shadow, suddenly a figure appeared behind him. It was the Blood Ancestor himself. On the other side, Vasily successfully found the injured team members. After examining them, it was determined that they were not infected. Vasily helped them out, but as soon as they came out, they encountered Eichhorst.
Lovely evening!
In a secret laboratory that Palmer invested in, they captured a group of vampires for research, aiming to uncover the secret of their immortality. The staff extracted a vaccine from the nematode worm inside the vampires' bodies. Immediately, they began human experiments. They brought in an elderly person who was on the verge of death and injected the developed vaccine into her body. Suddenly, the old person's blood pressure skyrocketed, and she started convulsing violently. Seeing the alarming situation, the experimenters immediately started resuscitating the elderly person. However, she couldn't withstand the virus in the vaccine, foaming at the mouth and her eyes turning red. Seeing that the elderly person was about to mutate into a vampire, the experimenters had no choice but to shoot her. Later, the doctor reported the experimental results to Palmer, who was infuriated upon hearing them. He had invested a huge amount of money and received no good news so far. The doctor explained that the white blood in the vampires was lethal poison. There's no way to extract a vaccine for immortality. Faced with such inhumane experiments, the doctor offered Palmer his resignation. Palmer had gone to such great lengths because since the last time he caused the Blood Ancestor to lose the oxytolumen, he hadn't obtained any white blood from the Blood Ancestor, which resulted in Palmer's deteriorating health. He was in urgent need of white blood to prolong his life. Eichhorst stated that only when they retrieve the oxytolumen can they offset the previous betrayal. F arrived at Quinlan's residence and bumped into him in the corridor. Luckily, Vasily arrived in time and saved F's life. F was a bit stunned seeing Quinlan, who resembled the Blood Ancestor. Subsequently, Vasily led F inside the house. Upon meeting Abraham, F recounted the events of the past few days. They both fell into sadness upon learning about Nora's death. Later, F sat outside drinking alone, and Quinlan approached him because he sensed that something was wrong with F.
A long time, Doctor. I saw Emperor Domitian slain by his own court. I witnessed Giuliano Medici's murder during Easter services and watched the Borgias strangle their own. Over the centuries, I've developed a keen nose for treachery, so I must wonder, what's the real reason you're here?
F didn't offer much explanation in response to Quinlan's doubts. On the other hand, Dutch and her friends arrived at a building. Since she broke up with Vasily, she had been with them. They were running out of supplies, so they decided to take a risk and search for resources. Soon, they arrived at a wealthy household. After surveying the area and finding no one, they immediately started searching for supplies. Then, cautiously, they entered the bedroom to find useful tools. However, as the man checked under the bed, the woman noticed something unusual and walked over, unaware that a blood had silently approached from behind. Hearing the screams, Dutch and the others immediately ran to the bedroom. Dutch shot and killed one blood, then shot another one. Following that, Dutch stood on the bed and started shooting under it. Just then, another blood emerged from behind the two. The man blocked the attack with his hand before retaliating and escaping the house. Dutch turned around and killed the blood under the bed, but when she prepared to deal with the other one, she realized her gun was out of bullets. At this moment, the man who had escaped the room immediately called their companions to flee, paying no heed to Dutch's well-being. Soon, Dutch returned to the meeting point with her companions. She decided to part ways with these heartless friends. Just then, Dutch noticed that something was off with her companion. She used a UV light on him and discovered hundreds of wriggling nematode worm on his body. Initially, Dutch didn't want to deal with him, but one sentence from the man completely enraged her. Zach was imprisoned in a secret room and witnessed a horrifying scene while fumbling. Zach was immediately frightened and ran away. Although Kelly retained her human form, she still needed to regularly feed on fresh blood. Soon, Zach reached a dead end. Kelly chased after him at that moment. Due to the intense movement, Zach's asthma flared up again. His breathing became extremely rapid, and he asked his mother to get his medicine for him. Kelly didn't respond to his request, but instead knelt in front of Zach. Because she hadn't fed enough, Kelly uncontrollably extended her flesh stinger once again. However, Kelly suddenly stopped. It turned out that the blood ancestor managed to regain control over Kelly's body in time. This saved Zach's life. The blood ancestor slowly approached Zach and once again controlled Kelly to forcefully open Zach's mouth. Blood ancestor then fed white blood to Zach. In the next moment, Zach's asthma was completely cured. Vasily suddenly approached and conveyed that the owner of the Oxidolumen wanted to meet him. Abraham, upon hearing this, decided to make a trip, as he had possessed the Oxidolumen for 40 years and might know the contents of the book. After Abraham left, F prepared to steal the Oxidolumen. He searched Abraham's room but found no trace of the book. Later, F discovered a strange room. When he pulled back the curtains, he found a cabinet illuminated by several ultraviolet lights. These ultraviolet lights were there to prevent the blood ancestor from stealing it. Just as F was about to open the cabinet, Quinlan suddenly appeared behind him. Clearly, both of them had similar intentions, so they temporarily formed a partnership. Abraham and F arrived at the agreed location, only to find that Palmer was the person who came. Vasily immediately drew his gun upon seeing Palmer. Upon realizing that Palmer had no ill intentions, Abraham asked Vasily to put the gun down. He wanted to hear what Palmer wanted from them. Palmer came to propose a trade. He could withdraw all support for the blood ancestor, but Abraham had to give him the secret of longevity, because Abraham was over 10 years older than him, yet still full of vitality, so the only thing he could think of was to extract white blood to renew his life. Abraham, without concealing anything, admitted that he knew the method of extracting white blood. However, Abraham didn't believe Palmer at all. He stated that with the Oxidolumen and white blood in his hands, he was certain they would defeat the blood ancestor. After saying that, he left immediately. Vasily and F returned to Quinlan's residence. At that moment, Abraham discovered that the Oxidolumen was missing. They speculated that Quinlan took it to lure the blood ancestor. Fortunately, Vasily had installed a tracker on the book in advance to prevent anyone from stealing it.